Good question again. Why do I chase depth as opposed to belts, right? So, once again, for me, all right, I'm not speaking for everyone, I can't, okay? But once again, for me, I rather chase depth than to chase a belt. Now, belts are good, okay? And this is a real story, okay? When I was a lower belt, I did come to this school. I did have prior martial art experience, right? But in this particular style, I want to say, yes, I was an orange belt, okay? I was an orange belt, and this black belt came into the school, and I wanted to compete. And my sensei at the time was helping me get ready to compete. And this black belt came in, and he was like, Charlie, he always called me like that. I love when he calls me by my name. He just always said, Charlie. But anyway, he was like, I want you to spar against this black belt. And I'm like, okay, yes, sensei. I was an orange belt, right? And it was point fighting, right? But remember, this person is a black belt, and I'm a lower belt. So any day we were moving, boom, I tagged him. 1 point for me, right? And it was point fighting, different than just all out like MMA fighting. It wasn't that type of shindig, right? If I may use that word. But so boom, I went again. I scored 2 points, right? And so he didn't like it, right? And so we're sparring again. Boom, he scored another point. Boom, he scored another point. So my sensei is like refereeing everything, and we're on our sides. And he was like, all right, 2-2. This next match is sudden death, right? So I'm like, all right, cool. So we're sparring, and he's coming straight. And I don't want to tell you too many of my favorite kicks, but back in the days, the hook kick was my favorite kick, right? So he's coming, and I step off the line of attack where he's coming, and I bring up my leg, and boom, with a hook kick to the back of the head. Stop, point. And I won, right? So that was, to me, good, but I was a lower belt. He was an upper belt. And even though I did have prior martial art experience, but at that time I wasn't a black belt. Or in Kung Fu, we go by sashes. And in Wing Chun, I'm a gray sash, all right, which is equivalent to a black belt, right? Well, if you go by Wing Chun, then yes, all right. I've studied multiple styles. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But nonetheless, I was a lower ranking belt in that system, and I beat a high ranking belt. So when it comes to martial arts, I don't chase after belts. I chase after depth, okay? Because depth is really important. In the words of this particular individual, because I do public speaking, I don't always like to say people's names or companies. But in the words of this individual, which I really totally agree with it, and I'm going to take his line. He says, Charles, there are some people that can beat me in the dojo, right? In the dojo, we're in the dojo right now, right? But they can't beat me in the street. And I so much agree with that. There are people that can beat you in the dojo, but when it comes to the street, they can't, because in the dojo, there are rules. In my point fighting, there were rules. But when you're chasing depth and you are studying yourself and knowing how to maneuver around pressure, then your goal shouldn't be to get, per se, a belt. Don't get me wrong, I got a black belt now, all right? Cool, it's fine. But your goal should be to chase depth, all right? Because your rank don't tell you who you are in the face of fear, under pressure, but who you are and the depths of who you are can tell you who you are under pressure, under fear. So me, it's not about the belts. Bruce Lee, in one of his movies, he says, um, 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 it's good that you broke a board, but boards don't hit back. So you have a belt, yes, that's good. Belts symbolize that you've been attending and everything, and you've been coming to class, but who you are, it's, how can I say this? Belts don't make the man or the woman. The woman or the man makes the belt. And I think that's a really good way to say it. So Don't get me wrong, I'm all for belts, and belts just shows that you've reached potentially or hopefully a certain stage in that particular isolated system of training, whatever it may be, and it shows where you at and that you have some level of knowledge, right? But it's not just what the system says, it's are you really evolving? Because you have some people that can do technique, but can you do the technique under the pressure? Can you do the technique when one guy's coming this way and you're fighting a guy this way, you know, and then a guy is hitting you from behind? It's a whole nother ball game. So I really don't chase belts. I chase depth and becoming.